The following program does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of the City of Oceanside, its elected officials, KOCT, its board of directors, or staff.
This program brought to you by the caring hands of Tri-City Medical Center.
Welcome to this edition of Voice of Oceanside. Today we're going to talk about Lifeline. And it's a program that you'll definitely want to know more about. And here to tell us about it is Executive Director of Lifeline, Mr. Don Stump. Don, thanks for joining us on the Voice of Oceanside.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, let's start out with you giving us an overview of exactly what Lifeline is.
North County Lifeline, our mission is to help people build self-reliance, children, youth, and families, through problem solving, skill building, and being accessible in the community for them for services. And we try to reach out and solve a lot of problems in the community. So we have 5 different program areas. The first one is we do a lot of work in juvenile delinquency prevention and youth development. The second area is that we do a lot of work in employment for families and adults. The third is that we do some child abuse prevention services through home visiting. And then we also do behavioral health for kids and families, mostly school-based, but also community-based. And then the fifth area is we do mediation and fair housing advocacy services in the community.
Now, one of the things that struck me is that your mission statement is building self-reliance. And we'll get into this in the second half of the show where we talk about programs. But one of the things I think is unique is that you're not just applying a stick-on solution, you are interacting with your clients in a way to build capacity within them.
We really felt like when we were developing our mission statement that really focusing on self-reliance was a good starting point, because there's so many people in need right now. As people are sort of getting back to work, and what they really need us to be is they need us to be there when they need us, so in crisis. And then what we can do best during our time with them is help them build some skills and then really figure out how to become their own case manager, how to take care of their own needs, and how to come back and utilize us when they need us, but not be dependent on us for a lifeline of services.
Give us a little feel for the history of Lifeline.
North County Lifeline started in 1969. A group of volunteers in the Vista community came together and they really wanted to do something to help troubled youth. And at the time, troubled youth who were using alcohol and drugs recreationally were a big problem. And so Lifeline was created by really this group of volunteers reaching out and trying to create something. Over the last 43 years, Lifeline did incorporate in 1973 as an organization, moved from a volunteer organization to a private organization. We're a 501c3 charitable organization, so we were established to do our mission. And the work that we're doing really came out of that original focus on youth. So that youth development services and juvenile delinquency prevention and children's behavioral health services are we're still doing that today. The next thing that sort of came into Lifeline's array of services was we started doing sort of emergency assistance and employment services with very low income families that were struggling. And today we're still doing those employment services. And then
did the geography shift over time, so initially Vista?
Yeah, I would say probably the first 10 years were focused on Vista, and probably by the late 70s, Lifeline had fully moved into being what is now called North County Lifeline. So we have a focus on Vista and Oceanside mostly. I would say the majority of our clients and services are in those 2 communities, but we actually have services available to anybody in North County, all the way from the edges of Pendleton down to Encinitas, all the way out to the rural areas of the more eastern side of North County, like Valley Center, Fallbrook, Encinitas. Or Escondido, I'm sorry.
And how did the funding for this, I assume in the original volunteer effort, funding was not a huge issue, but now it is.
Yeah, the role of a charitable organization and a nonprofit has changed a lot in those 43 years. There used to be a lot of things that volunteers could do to really be helpful. We've really had to professionalize over the last 43 years. And by doing that, we also have to actively seek out funding. So Lifeline has a really broad array of funding sources. So we have a variety of government contracts, mostly with the County of San Diego, that help us do our child abuse prevention services, a lot of our youth delinquency prevention services, and they also help us with some of our employment services. Then we have state and federal grants. Some of them are short-term, that are really helping us do very specialized things, like we do free taxes for families in the community. We do some very focused family work through a state grant. And then we also do private fundraising. So we reach out to the community, individuals, donors, corporations to do sponsorships, foundations that help us seed innovative new ideas that we're trying to get started to solve problems. So we really have the whole array and gamut of funding sources.
Now, do you have an active board that is involved in this fundraising, or is it mostly the staff handling that?
Lifeline, like all charitable organizations, my keen oversight is by our 14-member board of directors. And they are volunteers to the organization that are really serving to make sure we keep good, strong legal and fiduciary responsibility for the organization, and then also to make sure that we're doing good, high-quality programs and we're meeting the needs of the community. And one of the ways that they do that is that they help us fundraise to keep the fiscal vitality of the organization. So we do a couple of fun things every year. Last year, right here in Oceanside, we did 2 events. One was our Kickball for Literacy, and we had many community partners that came out and sponsored a team, including the Oceanside Fire Department and the Oceanside Police Department, and that was very fun. And then we also do an event called the It's Now, It's Wow Youth Art Auction. And youth in our programs paint, take pictures, do sculptures, do ceramics. And we do an auction of that every year, and our upcoming event is coming up on October 5th, 2013.
And information on that will be on your website?
It will be on our website.
Okay, and we'll put that website up on the screen so people know what we're talking about.
Awesome.
How do people find you? You've been around a long time, so that's probably part of it, but I'm assuming there's a referral network out there that must be responsible for at least a significant percentage.
Yeah. Lifeline, we really pride ourselves in being a long-term community-based organization and partner in North County. The City of Oceanside has been a great partner to us, and so by being around so long, the community, through word of mouth and through our community partners, really knows how to find us. However, I would say probably 50–60% of all Lifeline clients, they come to us because they are being referred by somebody else. Usually a law enforcement official, a judge, a school counselor or principal, a social worker with child welfare services, sometimes a local recreation program where the kid is struggling in that program. So we have very good relationships with a lot of these different community partners, and so when they need some of our case management, counseling, intensive therapeutic services, they'll reach out to us.
Do your clients tend to interact with you across a range of programs, or just one or maybe two?
Part of our philosophy is, since we are this sort of broad-based multi-service organization, is we want to make sure that if somebody comes in with one need, and through that process we identify that they have another need that we can help them with, we will do those own linkages and referrals within our own organization. And we also, when we identify needs that we don't do, we'll also link and refer them into the community. You know, a perfect example of this is, I'm thinking about a referral that we had of a young man the other day, and he was really acting out extremely in his school environment, and that had turned into truancy and was not really showing up for school very much. Got referred to one of our youth programs. Case manager did a full assessment, and rather than focusing all our attention on that kid, which we did focus attention on him, what we did realize is that that kid's family situation had changed very radically recently. mother had moved into being a full-time employee, father got laid off, was having a lot of frustration, wasn't being able to find work. And so there was a lot of financial challenges that were going on in the family. There were some relationship and parenting, marital problems that were happening in the family. So other than our program just to work with that youth and do a group and help him resolve his issues, we were also able to refer them and get dad connected with employment services and make available some family counseling or marital counseling if the family chose to get involved in that.
I'm sure that your client base is somewhat different demographically depending on what program we're talking about. And after the break, we'll get into the programs. But is there a common element there? Can you give us a picture of the average client?
Well, I will say, I mean, a lot of the reasons that charitable organizations exist is because there are folks in the community that are very troubled, and their trouble may be a relationship, a delinquency, a family violence, some sort of problem is going on. And you know, if you were a family of wealth, you might pick up a phone, call a therapist and work on that together, or you might you know, have resources that you can kind of take care of your own problem. So I will say that the typical client of North County Lifeline is going to be in poverty. They're probably very low income, and they either have resources that they don't know and don't know how to reach out to, or they don't have any resources of their own and they really need to borrow on us a little bit for a while and have us provide all the counseling and support services, and then we can get them connected.
You know, I'm really intrigued by this concept that you look for deeper causes. I guess that implies that you must have a good degree of cross-training in your intake system. Yes. To be alert to this.
Yeah, the phone number that I gave you guys was really our youth and family intake line, and so we have really skilled people that are going to listen carefully to what the problem is. And then rather than you having to figure out what program at North County Lifeline you need to go to, we'll get you placed in the right program at North County Lifeline. And then the secondary level is that once you know, if it's a youth with a very particular need, once we determine that there might be some more family income issues or family counseling issues, we will make sure that those are assessed and referred as well. We have a very professional staff, and we also have a very professional volunteer pool. So one of the things I'm most proud of at Lifeline is that we do a lot of internal training. There are some things that we do across the board to make sure all our staff have pretty common skill levels. We do something called social services program training, and it's to make sure everybody has a baseline knowledge of how to do a good assessment, how to do a good treatment plan, how to do good case notes, how to do good discharge planning when the time is over, how to understand the safety of home visiting, how to understand the complications of home visiting, how to do crisis management with a client who may be volatile or may have some emotional problems that aren't yet identified. And so we do a pretty good baseline training for that. And then we also do training on a couple of philosophical practices. One is called seeking safety and the other is called motivational interviewing.
You know, that sounds interesting. It's actually, believe it or not, it's time for our first break. And we will get to the specific programs in the second half, but I do want to expand on that staff training a little bit because that's a tremendous asset to an organization to have this core staff over time. So we'll be gone for a couple minutes. Stay with us. We'll be back talking more about Lifeline. Stay with us.
Come on, man.
Just do it quick. No one's watching. You have to if you want to hang with us.
The other one, too?
Good job.
Do the right thing. Pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Interfaith Community Services continues to serve veterans, the poor, and the homeless in our community, helping those in need get back on their feet. Visit Interfaith Community Services at interfaithservices.org.
Welcome back to the Voice of Oceanside. We're talking about North County Lifeline. Don, we were talking about your staff, which is a combination of employed and volunteer. So give us a little more information on that.
I'll be honest with you. It's one of my key points of pride is that over the years our budget has grown. We're up to about 125 staff, and those staff are stationed Vista, Oceanside, Escondido, and then we have them outstationed in other places as well. We also have probably at any given time about 150 volunteers helping us do our work in the community. And over the year we'll probably, through one-time volunteer events, we'll serve hundreds of volunteers who will help us to serve the community. And when I was talking about training a little bit earlier, all our volunteers have access to that social services program training, the seeking safety, and the motivational interviewing, because we really want to keep those common elements amongst our paid and our volunteer staff. And then another thing I'm very proud of about our staff and volunteers is that we actually utilize at any given time probably about 35 to 40 interns, and these are clinical level master's and PhD interns, and they help us do a lot of our behavioral health work and our juvenile delinquency work in the community. And so we really realized and understood that as a charitable organization in the community, part of our role is really helping to train the next great therapists, counselors, caseworkers in the community. So rather than doing that when they become employed with us, we actually have created these intern opportunities. And so right now I know we have about 16 social work interns from 3 different universities, USC, San Diego State, and in the fall CSU San Marcos. And then we have MFT, Marriage and Family Therapists, interns from San Diego State, National University, and a variety of other places. And then we have PhD students from Alliant University, PhD and PsyD students. And they're awesome. We do a great job with training them, and they do a great job of helping us serve the community more.
Is there a need for additional volunteers?
We always have a need for additional volunteers. And actually, if you call that intake and crisis line, they will be also able to help you get connected with our volunteer coordinator.
Yeah. Do they have to pretend it's a crisis and say,
No.
I need to be a volunteer today?
I'm
Please help
urgently in
me.
need of being a volunteer.
In need. Very good. Well, I said we'd get to the programs, and we need to do that because you've got a lot of programs, and I don't think we'll be able to get to all of them. And it also occurred to me that when you were talking about your target market, you can't help but think that some of this is very neighborhood oriented because neighborhoods tend to be of a certain economic status. Crown Heights, for example, is one that comes to mind. So as we go through this list, maybe you could focus on the neighborhood aspect of that. And I'll leave it to you to choose what order you want to talk about your programs.
Okay. Actually, we're very committed and dedicated to the Crown Heights community. There's been some recent sort of jabs of community violence that are painting a picture of Crown Heights. However, we've been there. I mean, we got staff there 275, 300 days a year doing good work in the community. And many of those days are good days. The community, by nature, is a very densely populated, high apartment, low income community. The cultural diversity is pretty high in that community as well. And so we have staff primarily in 2 programs in Crown Heights. One of the big challenges in Crown Heights is really there's a lot of kids in that densely populated area, and we want to really divert them from getting involved in crime and gang activity. So what we do is we provide a youth development after school program called Club Crown Heights. And we have kids in 2 different age groups, sort of the elementary school age group and then a middle school, high school group. And they are there. We do homework assistance and then help them keep focused on staying in school. And then we also do sort of a recreational focus. We want to get them outside, energized. They've sat down in school all day. We want to do sports and kickball and dodgeball, which is one of their favorites, and just have a good time with them. And then another focus is really on civic leadership. So we have structured that program such that through your time in the program, you can become part of the youth council that really organizes and designs the programming and the activities that happen at the center. And you take on a civic leadership point of view, which is we ask you to be ambassadors for Club Crown Heights, for North County Lifeline, for the Crown Heights community. Those kids have spoken at city council meetings. They've organized large civic projects to do beach cleanups. They do a lot of the organizing and labor on the Crown Heights Community Fair every year and the Halloween Festival. So the kids, from our point of view, they have their struggles, but we see all these kids as assets in that community. And so we have to create opportunities to let them show what great assets they are for Oceanside.
What's the youngest age?
I'd say elementary, we're kind of 6 to 10 years old, and then middle school probably starts around 10 and goes up. We have some kids every year, the last 3 years, one of our kids around 17 graduated from a local high school, Oceanside High School and El Camino High School, and they're going on to school, one of them out of this county and one to CSU San Marcos. And we have another young man coming up right now who's about to go that, and he's applying for scholarships, and it's all looking good right now.
Great. I'm thinking that's a volunteer opportunity, helping with homework.
Helping with homework, great. We always need extra people to help us do the homework assistance, and actually if you are recreationally oriented, really helping us bring some creative and fun ideas to working with the kids. If you're an artist and want to do an art project, those are the sort of things the kids love.
Okay.
And then also in Crown Heights, we take this focus of something called the Financial Opportunity Center. And what that really is what we're, and it's about employment, but employment doesn't solve the problem of poverty, because we can get you a job, but can you retain that job? So we want to do job readiness, we want to do coaching, we want to help you not only get a job, but be successful once you stay in it. And then the second thing is now you're earning income, or you're earning more income, we want to help you spend that money. So we want to talk about budgeting. A lot of people,
more precisely, not spending.
Not spending more money. And you know, a keen part of that budgeting is really doing a full financial assessment and saying, what sort of assets do you have? What sort of assets do you want to build? Can you start saving, even if it's just $10 a month for your kids to go to college? If you do want to upgrade your car, how are you going to do that? And then another part of that has been the problem of credit. So we help folks do a lot of credit repair. Sometimes they want to improve their apartment, they want to move from an apartment and maybe purchase a home. But the biggest barrier to that is sometimes credit. So we spend a lot of time helping them sort of manage what assets they have. And then another part of it is how can we sort of reduce some of their costs. And sometimes there are, you know, food programs in the community, CalFresh, low-income health plans, and different ways that they can reduce some of their expenses by applying for things that they're eligible for, and then we'll move them off them once they get out of crisis.
Now, I can picture the first thing we talked about with the academic work, teachers doing a referral. Do business owners or employers ever do referrals for the second program?
Yes, they do, and we actually have a job developer that's actually reaching out to employers, and we're trying to look at what very specific types of jobs do they need, and how we can start guiding some of our clients into particular educational programs and training programs that are going to prepare them for the needs of the business community. And another thing we really want to do with a Financial Opportunity Center is we want to look at, you know, for some people, getting a job, that's how you have income. But what we've noticed in the community and in Crown Heights as well, there's sort of an entrepreneurial sense, which is how can I create my own job? And so we want to have the Small Business Association. We want to have Accion They can do micro lending and loans, help you put together a business plan. How can you kind of create your own program? And something in the future that we're looking at is childcare is a big need in that community. So one of our thoughts was, do we do a childcare program in the community? And you know, a childcare program is licensed and it can only serve a certain number of kids. So our thought was, hey, I know this great organization down in San Diego called Chicano Federation, and they train mothers to develop childcare businesses in their own home. They teach you everything you need to know and teach you how to get the certification process. And then instead of having those 20 or 40 slots for childcare, we now have 20 mothers that can have 3 to 4 children in their home and earn income on it that can then be brought into the community. So
that's really a beautiful tie-in, because you have long-term involvement with deep tentacles into the community.
Yes.
And you start to realize things like a job problem may really be a child care problem.
Yes.
And it's a chicken or the egg. I see that as an educator teaching school, and even graduate school at night, where what's standing between someone and education is childcare.
Is childcare. I absolutely agree. It's one of the biggest barriers to self-sufficiency out there.
You know, we've got a couple of minutes left. Is there another program or two you want to highlight?
We've done some really interesting things recently with our behavioral health programs. So I'll mention that quickly, and something about our child abuse prevention. The law enforcement community in North County, which is a collaboration of many law enforcement agencies, primarily the Sheriff's Department, approached us and said, there's a problem of human trafficking that's going all over San Diego County and even up here in North County. And we're doing a great job of going after these guys legally and through police work. But the real question is, what do we do with the victims of these trafficking and sexual violence issues? And so Lifeline has really stepped forward, and so we're beginning to put together programming, casework, outreach, and link to housing for a lot of these victims of human trafficking. And then in terms of our child abuse prevention, we have home visitors that are out in the community, once again, from the coast all the way out to the inland valleys, that are doing home visits. So we're referred families where a child has been removed from the home, or where there's a threat that the child will be removed from the home because of abuse or neglect. And our strategy is the child welfare services will refer to us, we'll reach out to them, we'll do very intensive home-based parenting, home safety training, parent-child interaction work, and our goal is to help them keep their family intact and bring the child back home.
Don, it's one of the most robust community service organizations I've ever heard of. I think we've covered about 25% of what you do. And we'd love to see you back here at some point to expand on this. Unfortunately, we're out of time.
Oh.
But thanks for joining us, and thanks for the work that you're doing out there.
Thank you so much for having me, and we are a robust organization, and I do want to say that we couldn't do what we do without a huge amount of community partners. So not only do we do the work that we do, but we have a network of folks that do things that we don't do, homeless shelters. Interfaith Community Services does a lot of services with veterans. So we have good relationships and good partnerships in the community where we will cross-refer and make sure that people get their needs met. And so I thank the community, I thank the City of Oceanside for being a big support for us in Crown Heights, and we can't do it just by ourselves.
That's a great way to end the program, and we thank you for watching. Remember, KOCT has Voice of Oceanside and other shows available for you on demand at koct.org. Thanks for viewing.